All right, guys. It's 5 o'clock on the dot. We like to get started on time around here. Welcome to another episode of The Filter. This is The Filter number 127. We've done this 126 times already, and we're going to do it at least one more time tonight. What is The Filter? Well, we get together every week and we talk about the crazy world of cryptocurrencies. There's never a dull moment in cryptocurrency land, and tonight is no exception. We've got lots of stuff to talk about. Bitcoin gold. How many people have some Bitcoin gold? Maybe you have Bitcoin gold and you don't even know you have Bitcoin gold. We are going to inform you of your newfound riches. You have money you don't need. Bank error in your favor with Bitcoin gold. Unless you do something wrong and lose it all. Bitcoin gold. Okay, what else? We've got Tether. Tether, the cryptocurrency that is worth exactly $1 US. Why would we need such a thing? And what happened with it getting hacked? Tether was hacked. They lost $30 million. We're going to get into the details on that one. They got quote unquote hacked. Air quotes hacked. You always have to put air quotes around any Bitcoin company that gets hacked, because you never know if it was self-inflicted. Yes, if it was an inside job. We just don't know. What else are we going to talk about tonight? Something that we kind of neglected the last couple of weeks, but the parity bug and Ethereum. Forget about 30 million. How about 300 million? That's how much was locked up in a faulty multi-sig contract executed by the Parity wallet. We're going to talk a little bit about that, and we'll scratch our heads as to the response from the Ethereum market with an increase in price of Ethereum. If we get there, hopefully we'll get there, we might talk about a little bit about censorship. You know, we run a little Facebook group to facilitate these meetings, and you would not believe all of the stuff that shows up that people want to post in the group. So in a way, you know, me and the other admins of the group, we kind of censor what you guys see within the closed Bitcoin Facebook group. But there's a, Reddit gets a lot more attention, the subreddits for Bitcoin and our BTC and our Bitcoin and probably our Ethereum as well. There's a lot of people crying that there's censorship and that people can't post what they want in a public forum. And if we have time, I'd like to get into a little discussion around the censorship that people decry when it comes to Bitcoin and talking about cryptocurrency in general. We've got a packed house, and we've got 90 minutes. Let's go ahead and kick things off, guys. I'm going to share my screen with the folks at home. If you can just bear with me for just a moment, they should be seeing what we see. All right, this is the filter number 127. And let's kick things off. We've been here for, well, it's been a week since we've been here together, and the price of Bitcoin, this is a 1 week chart from 6,500 all the way up past 8,000. Are you guys like me, just waking up every morning and kind of scratching your head, wondering like, just how far is this going to go? I did my analysis probably 6 months ago, and I thought maybe the next Bitcoin bubble might go up to like 4,800 or something. So that shows you what I know. You can feel free to disregard all of my trading advice going forward. Yeah, this thing just seems to keep on going. We've also got some news this week about Bitcoin futures and the CME group beginning to offer Bitcoin futures. Perhaps this is institutional money coming in. I don't know. Well, we'll talk about it. But yeah, it's been a pretty wild week. And the other cryptocurrencies are also well, it's a bit of a mixed bag. We're going to talk about Ethereum and this parity situation that took place in the last couple of weeks, but it's not reflected in the Ethereum price. Ethereum has gone up precipitously, I'd say. It was kind of right around $300 for weeks and weeks, and now it's going a bit nuts. Of course, far down the list, oh, don't forget Bitcoin Cash. I was going to try and have a guest speaker talk about Bitcoin Cash because I think I'm a little bit biased. I think I can safely say that I'm a little bit biased when it comes to Bitcoin versus Bitcoin Cash, and there's a lot of people that feel just as strongly on the other side of the argument. But maybe we'll pull that off in weeks to come. So we're gonna skip over Bitcoin Cash and we're gonna move right to Bitcoin Gold. Now I asked the question already, but how many people have Bitcoin Gold? Anybody? Anybody? Yeah, there's a few in the audience. How many people don't know what Bitcoin Gold is?
How many don't know if they have any or not?
Yes. Well, the short answer is if you had Bitcoin before a certain block in the Bitcoin blockchain, then you also have Bitcoin Gold. So, but let's take a look at this for a second. Bitcoin Gold, Bitcoin Gold.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yeah.
My confusion is like my Bitcoin was sitting on an on-ramp when fork happened.
As in an exchange?
Cash. No, not an exchange. Like the place where I turned my fiat into Bitcoin before it goes into the exchange. It was sitting there. It's called CoinJar. It was sitting there before the fork for cash and also before the fork to gold. And the on-ramp service provider has basically said, no, we're not going to, have the technology and to allow you to get your cash, your Bitcoin Cash or your Bitcoin Gold. I've since moved it off that into my Trezor wallet, and Trezor has sent me an email saying we are now able to, activate. You can claim your Bitcoin Gold, but I haven't checked if I am actually qualified for that because
right.
I only just put it on there.
So let's talk a little bit about what Bitcoin Gold is. This is what Willy Woo kind of coined the phrase initial fork offering, meaning that you're creating another thing that shares Bitcoin's history, but has forked off into its own blockchain, right? And so all of the keys that belong to Bitcoin before a certain block, I don't know exactly what block that is, but right. If you have the private keys from before that block, then it's good on 3 blockchains: on the Bitcoin blockchain, on the Bitcoin Cash blockchain, and on the Bitcoin Gold blockchain. But this is a good reminder that when an exchange shows you a balance, like an exchange says you have 0.2 Bitcoins, you don't really have that if you don't really have your keys. So they'll show you a number, and this actually is rearing its head with this whole Tether debacle. But when you log into a website and it shows you a number, that's just a number until you have the real deal, right? And this is how banking has worked for centuries, where you really only have a receipt for the thing that's really valuable. And I think they try and do the same thing, even though we've got this new technology where people can take control and they can have a bearer instrument that no one can take from them if they handle it right. We're still relying on third parties to manage our keys for us, and some of them are doing some, I don't know.
So you transfer it out, you know your private keys.
Yeah, when you use a Trezor, the Trezor actually has your private keys, but
yeah, but I transferred out after the fork phase.
I see. Now, if they were, I mean, it's a policy decision on the part of CoinJar to say, because they had keys for those coins, presumably.
Yeah.
You never really know. I mean, these exchanges could be doing some sort of fractional reserve, or they could just be showing you a figure that's in their own database, and they don't know what private key it really corresponds to. But in your case, in the case of this exchange, they've decided, we're not going to give that.
You could sue them though.
You could.
Because it's your ownership, and if you don't want to give it, that's against the law. So.
Yes, and they probably have fiduciary responsibility and money transmitter laws, and some of those laws may protect you.
So it's a lot of money. Chance.
Yeah, it's an interesting.
It probably cost me more on legal fees than the value of the
It's so funny though. I've been using crypto coins for so long that I don't even think about the legal option. Like it doesn't even occur to me because I just figure they'll just shrug their shoulders and not know what I'm talking about. But I think we're finally getting to a place where maybe they do know what's going on, and the regulators are getting more savvy, and maybe would have some recourse.
Be cool lawsuit.
It would. It
Who
would.
wants to be my lawyer?
Yes. Any lawyers in the room? Is there a doctor in the house?
Any virtual
Crypto doctor.
Aaron, you've got the
We
one
all
sleeping
lawyers.
chair over in my husband's
Yeah,
down
it
the
keeps
line.
going.
Might be
Keeps going.
somebody next to you would swap because every time you move, might be really hard for the.
No, it's not the squeaky chair. It's all those tamales you had in Costa Rica.
Yeah, it's I had too many donuts and my chair just keeps sinking lower and lower. Shouldn't have had the nasi goreng. But let's take a look at this thing here from November 12th. So I guess that's the date that they went live, and there's the block height. So in crypto land, we don't count time, we count blocks, and this is the block at which they started building their own version of history, their own blockchain. And if you owned Bitcoin before that block, then you also own Bitcoin Gold, right? How much is Bitcoin Gold worth? Let's see. Actually, Bitcoin Gold is worth $307.63, up quite a bit today.
Wow. That's more than I would expect. 152%.
Now, here's the interesting thing. This shares the history with Bitcoin itself, and when it enters the market, how do people know what the value of this coin is? Like how do they figure out that $300 is the value of this thing that used to be a piece of Bitcoin?
Is it volume?
Well, I mean, I guess
The
they
market
can.
decides, but we're assuming that being honest with buyers and sellers of the coin.
Yeah, I mean, it can. I don't really know how many exchanges are supporting this Bitcoin Gold or how much volume. Yeah, see that, and look, the circulating supply is a question mark. The volume is, well, they say it's 32,000 BTC. That's a lot of money. But it's kind of funny that they don't know what the supply is, and they don't know. Obviously, they can't calculate the market capitalization without the supply.
You pull up volume by markets.
Where is that a link?
Markets. Right next to charts there, it says markets.
Market.
Just see where the volume is predominantly.
Let's see.
So it's only just
Bittrex,
starting to hit exchanges.
BTC,
Yeah.
Bitfinex.
It only hit Bittrex this morning.
Yeah. Bittrex
fine.
trading just open, so
Yeah.
it makes sense that it's spiking from.
Just from hitting that exchange.
Yeah.
Good point. Good point. So yeah, Bitcoin Gold. Now, also, you know, I asked everyone to raise their hand if they had Bitcoin Gold, but how many people know how to sell their Bitcoin Gold or turn their Bitcoin Gold into something else? So for those who can't see the room, it's a very small subset of the people that originally raised their hand.
Bitcoin Cash.
So do you suppose that there are people out there that don't realize they have Bitcoin Gold, or if they do, they don't know how to sell it? Right? That this is a distinct possibility that the volume on the market itself does not reflect, you know, the people that actually have the wherewithal to get onto a market and dispose of their Bitcoin Gold. There's also another factor that reduces the amount of Bitcoin Gold that's probably for sale, and that is that you have to vacate your Bitcoin and your Bitcoin Cash from those private keys before you sweep a private key that belongs to Bitcoin Gold. Is that confusing?
Yeah, unless your wallet supports.
Right. Well, the other thing to contemplate is beware of scams and frauds. And check this out. Look at all of the scam wallets and scam web services listed on the official Bitcoin Gold. And this is really dangerous because you're dealing with your private keys that belong to your Bitcoin, that belong to your Bitcoin Cash. And if you were to find one of these wallets, and by the way, at least one of these wallets, I don't know exactly which one, was listed on the Bitcoin Gold website as a legitimate wallet. And of course, open source software, the crypto community, they found a malicious piece of code where they were publishing a hash of the private key to a Google Analytics account. Like, it was very, very kind of tricky how they did it, because they could put the hash up on a public website that they could then log into and see, and no one else could decode the hashed information except for the hacker himself. But you couldn't tell who the hacker was because the information is just out there for everyone to see. So this is welcome to the nefarious world of cryptography, where you can do very clever things like store information out in plain sight. If you can just get it up onto a website, you can go and read that information. Nobody else can read that information. And then anybody who uses that scam wallet or that scam service can at least get your keys for Bitcoin Gold. But they can also get your keys for Bitcoin Cash and your keys for Bitcoin if you haven't moved those coins. So, you know, lots of people have Bitcoin in cold storage. They've got it on, you know, inside their Trezor or on a piece of paper, printed on a piece of paper. And so it's quite onerous to move all of that Bitcoin just to claim a $300 crypto asset that might not be around in a year.
Quick question. Bitcoin.co.id, what's their policy with Bitcoin Gold?
I don't know. Does anybody know if they're selling Bitcoin Gold or not, or supporting Bitcoin Gold?
I think they're selling it.
No, they're not selling it. It's not on there.
No.
They usually send a, you know.
So what's it going to take for this kind of stuff to go away?
Who's behind Bitcoin Gold?
I don't know. Does anybody know
This
who
would be a
the
good way to
who the
keep
team is?
scamming people. Keep coming out with. Next one is Bitcoin Platinum.
Yeah.
Silver.
And this can
Yes.
be
When will it stop?
10,000 pre-mined blocks before they release it to public mining. Is it 8,000?
Oh, the Bitcoin Gold people did
Yeah,
a
yeah.
pre-mine.
Yeah, massive pre-mine before they went public with the
Ah, that's so scammy. So for those who don't understand that, they created Bitcoin Gold. It flipped over to Bitcoin Gold at a certain block, but they didn't allow anybody else to mine it except for themselves until they went live, like, I don't know, 12 days later or something.
So Gary, can you explain this? Is it like Bitcoin's at 1 pi, and then you got 2 more pies? Or is it like Bitcoin's 1 pi and you took pieces of the pie away?
It's the same pie. You just
Yeah.
gotta pick the bits out.
It's like
Yeah.
photocopies
Is
of
that
pie.
right?
Who's the kid who stuck his thumb in the pie? I don't remember. Jack Horner. Yeah, I think, you know, one way to look at it is Bitcoin is a big pie, and then somebody is slicing a little piece of the pie and saying this is part of the original value. And yeah, you could say that you could actually add up your Bitcoin Cash, and your Bitcoin Gold, and you could say that, like, I've got 3 pieces of pie now. One really big one kind of big, and one tiny. Yeah, and your balance is represented by that entire thing. Ah, the team behind Bitcoin Gold. Do they have names or just pseudonyms? I don't know. Did you look at that article,
Yeah.
Robin? Or
Yeah, it's Chinese.
they've got pictures.
It's
One-
China.
One guy doesn't have a
Well,
webcam.
they're Chinese and probably in
Yes, we know the names.
Korea or Taiwan.
Jack Liao, Axel wrote that with Alexander, I don't know.
Yeah.
Random names.
They look trustable. I trust those guys.
There's a
No,
picture.
no, they're quite well known. A lot of them are quite well known.
Yeah.
Can you not read them out?
What's the point of it?
I mean, you just click.
Well,
Let's see.
Nobody say there was.
Jack
see.
Liao is the founder.
Jack Lau.
Here we go. Here's the guys.
Thank you.
All right.
Alright.
How about this
Wow.
Hex3 Rotab? He's the lead developer.
Like that.
Trust me.
These are the guys.
Oh, this guy. From Australia.
Does anybody know how these guys want to be different? Like, what are they saying? Why are they saying they want Bitcoin Gold? Is it that they have a
Want to be different? 'cause
Here
they
it
wanna
is.
take your-
Bitcoin Gold?
they're doing away with ASIC mining, I believe.
Ah, they've got a different proof of work algorithm. That's interesting.
Right.
So what's interesting about Bitcoin versus Bitcoin Cash is they share the same mining algorithm, so they really compete for the same miners. And last week we looked at that site, fork.lol, laugh out loud. Basically, it was comparing the two and saying it's more profitable to mine Bitcoin Cash, and now it's more profitable to mine Bitcoin itself. And these guys have taken another route and saying they've got a different proof of work algorithm that is only good on graphics processing chips. That's kind of interesting. So essentially, this network from that block on is going to be secured by a different proof of work algorithm that uses GPUs and not specialized hardware. So anyway,
which means that you can mine it on your
mine yourself.
on a
right.
normal
You can mine it on your Xbox or something with a good graphics processor.
That was their platform, decentralization.
I think they just saw the formula behind Bitcoin Cash and said we can get incredibly rich by doing this. You long Bitcoin against the US dollar, you short all other currencies against Bitcoin, you announce that you're going to do this. Profit from the movements is everybody dumps into Bitcoin and the chance to get their free money. And then once it hits the exchanges, the lack of liquidity and the slow block times, it only takes a small amount on the exchange to pump the price of your new thing that you just happen to pre-mine 8,000 blocks of. It's smart people taking an opportunity to make a lot of free money, in my opinion.
I like the way you think, man. This guy's going places. Yeah, I think you're right.
Bitcoin Platinum is on its way.
We will.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is it's as long as the market continues to react this way and continues to push money into Bitcoin to get their next fork of coins, this isn't going to go away.
So you think this can happen over and over and over again?
I'm hoping sooner or later people start to see that it's detrimental to the ecosystem as a whole. But yeah, they're already talking about Bitcoin Platinum. There's guys talking about Ethereum Marga.
Wait, they are talking about. I was joking.
Bitcoin Silver might have been called, but yeah, it's happening.
Yeah.
It can
Well-
go on for a long time, considering that there's still a lot of people that aren't into crypto yet.
Oh, when
Yes.
you see the price of Bitcoin at 7,000 whatever, and then you see Bitcoin gold at 300 something, somebody's going to say, well, I'm going to invest in Bitcoin gold.
Right. You really risk people showing up without knowing something more and maybe thinking they missed the boat on Bitcoin and oh, here's this Bitcoin gold and it's only $300 and
Well, a lot of people don't understand that they don't have to buy one Bitcoin. There's still a lot of people that don't understand.
right. But even the people that understand that might think that, oh, well, the Bitcoin ship has already sailed. If I want 10x or 100x, I've got to find the next big thing.
And I can get a whole Bitcoin gold. I can only get a fraction of a Bitcoin.
Right.
This is why I have friends with billions of Doge.
Yeah. It's a number. That's right. Anyway, this is a fascinating phenomenon. I hope that people will, I don't know, wise up to this kind of thing and this will stop working. But this is the nature of open source software and the nature of open blockchains. And it's a free world we live in. Even if they were to make laws against this, I mean, it would be very hard to stop it in all jurisdictions.
To make Bitcoin decentralized again?
Yes, it is. I think Donald Trump, doesn't Donald Trump knee
I
behind
think now
this?
they have to pay him because they use that.
It's not that
He's
smart.
gonna do his curtains in the Oval Office in Bitcoin gold. It's gonna be all Bitcoin gold
Yeah,
curtains there.
I could see that.
All right. Let's see. Let's get back to where we. Any more questions on Bitcoin gold? Bitcoin gold. All right.
So
Well,
don't worry about it.
call me in a year. Wake me up in a year, and let's see if
They don't-
Bitcoin gold is
going
still
on.
around, or if we've got Bitcoin platinum and a whole fish pond of new coins. All right, moving along. Tether. How many people have seen Tether in the news recently? Tether is, it's been kind of percolating in the news since back in August and even earlier than that. But let's talk just for a second about what is Tether. Tether is another crypto coin, and it's issued by a company or a foundation or some sort of legal entity that is related in some way to the Bitfinex exchange. What is Tether, the coin? It has a one-to-one relationship with the US dollar. So 1 Tether equals 1 US dollar.
It's tethered to the dollar.
It's tethered to the dollar, yes. That's some good branding there. But why would we need such a thing? Why do we need I mean, don't we want our crypto coins to go up in value? Don't we want to like speculate and find this coin that's going to be worth twice as much next year? If it's only going to be worth $1 next year, why would I want to buy that?
Lets people
Safety.
trade against the dollar pairing without going into actual fiat to avoid potential tax implications.
Yes, yes. And it allows all of the exchange in Tether to not need the banking relationships usually necessitated by dealing in a fiat currency like the dollar. And I think you'll see that all of the exchanges, or most of the exchanges that have had banking relationship problems, are the ones that are dealing Tether. It's good for traders because they can also move their USD balances between the exchanges. So if they're doing arbitrage and they need to realize their profits and then move their dollars onto another exchange, buy a cryptocurrency, make their profits and then move back again, they don't have to use the traditional banking system to close that loop, that arbitrage loop, right? So although it's, to the person first arriving, it seems a little bit boring, you know, $1 equals 1 tether. It's very valuable for the exchanges. It's good because it saves on them having to maintain these banking relationships, and many of those banking relationships have fallen apart for the exchanges that support these. And it's good for traders because they can keep a balance in US dollars without actually holding US dollars and creating a taxable event for themselves. So what could possibly go wrong, right? Basically, you've got people creating dollars, but the dollars do or don't exist, and that is the question. Let's take a look. This Hacker Noon guy wrote an article back in August. So remember, back in August, this is like, you know, 100 years in crypto time. But back in August, remember, we were going through the Bitcoin fork. Bitcoin Cash came into existence, and all kinds of stuff was going on at this point in time. And this guy, Bitfinex, wrote this article about the curious tale of the tethers, right? And this is a fascinating article. I highly recommend checking it out. I think it's on the Facebook page. Yeah. So what these guys did was they had banking relationships in Hong Kong and Taiwan, and they set aside $10 million, and they said, we're going to create 10 million tether, right? And all was right with the world. They had $10 million backing up their stuff, and everything was good. But then their banks said you can no longer trade in dollars, and basically shut down their ability to accept wire transfers in dollars and also disperse funds in dollars, right? But all the while, they've got this demand for tethers from their user base, right? So what did they do? They just started manipulating the balance of tethers within their account, but never were able to explain where these dollars that back these tethers were coming from. They started off with 10 million, and I think they ended up with 300 million tethers, if I'm not mistaken. So how did they do that? Well, here this is some legal documents, because they were suing the banks for closing down their accounts, and in their own documents, they basically said that if they can't accept dollars or wire dollars, it's going to ruin their business, right? So this guy is citing these legal documents that are talking about the fatality of the situation where they can't move dollars in and out, but all the while they're telling their customers, like, everything's fine, we've got enough tethers to back up or we got enough dollars to back up all of our tethers, and all of these new tethers are showing up and people are trading them. And the question was, where are they coming from? Enter this guy, Giancarlo Devasinini, MD, but I don't think he did much medical doctoring. He quickly got into lots of entrepreneurial ventures as early as way back in the 90s. And what he says, and I think this came out in some of the conference calls and interviews they did, but essentially they just went and opened up new bank accounts in new jurisdictions in maybe in this guy's name, or maybe in some of the other executives' names. They just went and opened up bank accounts and had their customers wire into these other jurisdictions, and then they said, well, all of our tethers are backed by dollars, and trust us, basically. So the story goes on and on, but essentially this guy makes the point, like, where are all these dollars coming from, and how do we know they're actually there? And he cites these interviews where people are, the executives involved are like, trust us, and they ask the question, in what jurisdiction do you guys do you guys operate? And they wouldn't answer the question. And essentially he said, this person, Bitfinex, was postulating that they have created all of these tethers, and we don't know if the actual dollars are there, right? And that, this is all over Twitter. People are arguing about it on Reddit, and then lo and behold, what happens? This just happened today. Tether claims 30 million in US dollar tokens stolen by attacker. Right. So
convenient.
yes. Something
Only 30
is.
million?
What's the thing about Denmark? Something doesn't smell right in Denmark or something. What is that saying? Anybody know?
Something rotten.
Something rotten in Denmark. Yeah. This is the nature. Any Bitcoin company that gets quote unquote hacked, it's kind of a plausible deniability thing for all of these people in crypto, because they can just say, whoops-a-daisy, we are hacked. If they're insolvent, they can simply say all these things disappeared, and
Don't they have to show? Don't they have to show the hack?
Well, the interesting thing about this part is what they stole was tethers. And they've got their own blockchain, and they've actually issued patches for their wallets that trade these tethers, and said we're gonna block off the addresses where all of these tethers went to. And so presumably they can see on the blockchain these tethers moving or not moving, or they can write code that makes these tethers not move. But all of the dollars that they claim to have should still be there, right? So. I mean, what does that mean when you've got, let's say you've got 300 million tethers or 30 million tethers, and you claim that 30 million were lost, but you still got $30 million in the bank. Have you really lost anything? I don't know. I mean, there's a bunch of people that are sitting on tethers right now, right? The tethers that are left over. Presumably they could go to Bitfinex and get actual dollars or some dollar value of some other cryptocurrency, because a lot of these exchanges that deal in tethers, they don't allow US dollars to go in or out. So if you want to withdraw your money, you've got to convert to Ethereum and withdraw, or convert to Bitcoin and withdraw. And so,
After this news, wouldn't the exchanges not want to deal with Tether? Wait to see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the ramifications are.
A bank run essentially against Tether.
Yeah, you could see it that way. I mean, I wouldn't want to be holding tethers, because, like, how do you know? How do you know what they're really worth? Has anybody here used tethers or have tethers, or? Yeah, and have you gotten any notes from the exchanges where you have them, or do you know if could you actually hold the tethers yourself, like in your own wallet?
No, I saw some healthy saying.
You were just speculating in these things.
Yeah, I just for a while.
Right. I don't know what's going to happen. This is like a crazy development, and I don't know what all the ramifications are, but it's fascinating. Bitfinex, if you remember, was hacked. I don't know, maybe a year ago, and they issued IOUs. You remember this?
Yeah.
Like Krista Rose is calling them "sorry for your lost" coins. Like But they ended up, because of the rise of Bitcoin and the increase in value of Bitcoin, they were able to give a value to all these IOUs and make them themselves solvent again. But it seems the controversy follows them around even still.
A knowledgeable local crypto guy strongly, in no uncertain words, said, get your funds out of Bitfinex at all costs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm having an issue. Sorry, I'm having an issue at the moment. I've got Ripple and IOTA on Bitfinex, and I can't get it off because I can't find a wallet that actually holds them. Has anyone got any recommendations
For IOTA and
Ripple?
Okay. I don't know. Does anybody store their own Ripple or their own IOTA?
Exodus?
IOTA
Yeah, it's not in my body.
But you have to download that. IOTA runs on a Tangle network.
Yeah.
And so you have to participate in it. You want to put your IOTA off an exchange. You can always move it to finance. Finance is another exchange. I mean, it's not an ideal long-term solution.
And I thought I looked at Exodus because I do have Exodus. I thought I looked there and couldn't have people.
No, I'm 100% sure.
100%. Okay.
Yeah.
Exodus or Eden?
Exodus.
Maybe an update.
All right, guys. Yeah.
The interesting thing about Tether is that it's highly centralized, not only at Bitfinex, but Poloniex has about 45% of the Tethers up there. I mean,
Right.
it's handy to. It's
Right.
great. I've
And-
moved it to Binance and done some things. And,
Mhm. You've used it to move USD around?
I've moved it from what's the other one? Bitfinex. Binance,
Kraken?
But no, it's not
Bittrex.
Bittrex. Thank you. I moved from Bittrex to Binance and done some things, but it sounds like it's highly centralized with Bitfinex and Poloniex. The other exchanges are just kind of getting bits of transactional.
Right, right. And I believe it's Kraken has an actual USDT cross, so you can actually withdraw US dollars from Kraken. But I think that they've got, I don't know if anyone has tried to do that. But
I think that's the only reason Kraken is still around. The worst, most awesome site I've ever seen to use, but they're an excellent fiat gateway, so they stay alive.
Interesting.
Why in town he was? It's not in the room.
I'm sure if it was, it wouldn't have been the first time someone told me the UX is shit.
I'm trying to find that.
You're right, Eden. Check that. Eden not. Yeah, sorry, it's on Eden, not Exodus.
Sorry?
Eden.
Eden.
Yeah.
Thanks.
It's an Exodus child.
There's a popular chat area called Whale Pool for people who are trading leverage BTC, and they do a voice chat called TeamSpeak. And there was a session at TeamSpeak where one of the Bitfinex guys came on and debated with Bitfinex. Just people are interested in it. It's interesting to hear both sides discussing the whole thing.
Was it this guy Flibber? Like the anonymous guy who
Flibber is just one of the main people in TeamSpeak, but actually the Finex CEO comes and hangs out in Whalepool sometimes. So it was an actual Finex employee.
Gotcha. Fascinating. All right. Yeah, to be continued. Let's see what happens with the whole Tether debacle. I don't think we've heard the last of it. There's the article on CoinDesk, 30 million US dollars tokens stolen by. All right, speaking of hacks, it's a very hack-filled evening tonight. And we haven't talked about this yet, although it didn't happen quite so recently. But I wanted to ask you guys about this. Someone accidentally locked away 300 million worth of other people's Ethereum funds due to a bug in the Parity wallet. And if you remember, I think back in July, we also had a Parity wallet multi-sig problem.
This is another?
This is another one.
Oh my
yes. God. And what happened was there is a, let's see, the affected wallets known as multi-signature wallets because they require multiple people to sign on and off were all created with the Parity wallet. So this is a wallet that handles Ethereum assets, experienced a bug in July that allowed a hacker to steal 32 million in Ethereum. So that was back in July, and now let's see here. If the story is true, it seems that this guy DevOps199 was messing with things. Let's see, DevOps on GitHub, a site for developers, allegedly accidentally triggered a function that turned the contract governing parity multisig wallets into a regular wallet address and made himself or herself the owner. DevOps199 then killed this wallet contract and suicided the funds that were there. And there was $300 million, including funds from several ICOs. $300 million just went up in smoke.
So
Now,
there's nothing to stop that kind of thing, right?
Well,
yeah. No, go ahead.
I mean, it's arguably not even a hack. The smart contract acted exactly as it was programmed to hack. So how do you stop it? It's reality. We need to look at the people about this contract and say, how did you go live with this contract? And anyone who used it, I mean, a lot of people are just trusting programmers, but this is why you need to understand what's happening before you use someone else's code. This is an issue with the immutability of a blockchain, and that smart contracts can never be changed once they're in place.
Right. There was this kind of thing going around back a year ago when they created the DAO, and they said code is law, right? And it doesn't matter what the specifications say; it only matters what the code does. And if you remember, the DAO hacker said, "I really like this new feature that you guys have added, where I'm able to pay myself unlimited DAO tokens. Thank you very much. I find this feature very useful." And there was all this hubbub, like, oh, what about now? Is code really law? Like, it doesn't matter what the developer specified, but it matters what the code does. And they actually forked Ethereum to rewrite history. If you know, Ethereum is supposed to be this immutable computing platform, censorship-resistant computing platform that nobody can change. And then they changed it in order to give back all the money to the people who lost their money in this hack. At the time, Vitalik Buterin, the benevolent dictator for Ethereum, said, it's early days for Ethereum, and we can go ahead and rectify this situation, give people back their money, but we're not going to do it again. And they didn't do it in the case of this hack back in July, and it looks like they're not going to do it in the case of this parity bug now. It's sorry, Charlie, looks like. They're not going to go back and redo the blockchain so that these people can get their money back. So all the people that invested in these ICOs, all the people that had their money in these multi-sig parity wallets have lost their money. The curious thing to me is, sorry guys, there's the post-mortem, $160 million. But the curious thing to me is look at like
Ethereum went up.
yeah, like this is the last month, last 3 months. Let's look at the last month since this happened. So right around here is where this happened, and look at the price of Ethereum. It's like
Negative publicity is still good for business.
it's like all news is good news kind of thing, or
No, but I mean, this is news to me.
yeah, the price of Ethereum has broken out. It was kind of hovering around 300 for quite a long time, and arguably this is bad press. But now, could it be that since they decided to not rewrite history, that people have more faith in the Ethereum platform as immutable? Could that be it? I don't know. I'm just like throwing something out there, spitball.
Makes me want to get rid of all my
Is it? Well, I mean, I remember when the DAO hack happened, I really had the thought that maybe this stuff is just not ready for prime time, and I sold my Ethereum at like $8, and I was really wrong about that. I mean, the market showed up in a big way, and there's no two ways about it. I was just wrong about the public perception of how much utility there was going to be in the Ethereum token. And now seemingly I'm wrong again, right? Like that this kind of hack happens. If I had Ethereum, I would think that, you know, we don't have competent developers, or the ecosystem isn't quite up to snuff. I mean, you can't even trust the wallets, like the wallets that are trusted by the ecosystem at large. You know, I can be holding my Ethereum in some wallet and it can just disappear. But the price goes up.
And you know, there's a whole lot of coins now out there in the universe that are based on the Ethereum.
Right.
So,
The ERC20 standard is what many of the ICOs are using as their tokens to account for their fundraising and for their
So we
token
don't know how
economies.
many ICOs have actually might have lost their funding.
There were ICOs that lost, like, I think 100 million. Or,
There was that one they mentioned that was owned by Parity.
what was it?
Before the
Let me see here. ICO.
no, the article.
Was it here?
You're right there. Gavin
Let's
Wood,
see.
Parity's
Some initial coin offerings
Polkadot.
for Ethereum apps. Yeah. Parity's own founder, Gavin Woods, did a crowd sale for Polkadot, and they raised over $100 million, and that was sitting in one of the addresses in the
Well, at least
Parity
the
wallet.
guy who was behind Parity got burned. So.
Yeah. Well, and this is like this guy Gavin Wood he's been around for a long time with Ethereum. I mean, he was there from the very beginning. I mean, he's no slouch. And I think what we've always said about Ethereum is, you know, it's a really cool idea to have a Turing complete computer that can execute anything with, you know, contractually. Your contracts can be as complicated as you want, but there's also a lot of room to make a mistake. And the DAO was a mistake, and then the Parity bug earlier this year was a mistake, and then here it's happening again. I mean,
none of those things were mistakes. They were there's a flaw in the underlying code.
right. Well, I mean,
It's an export.
yeah. I mean, call it what you will. I mean, I think it's the code is not acting the way many people expected it to act, is what you could say. Right. I mean, if I have a wallet, I don't expect my funds to disappear. Like, I wouldn't expect that to be a feature. But
hackers look for that kind of. I mean,
they do.
sorry,
Well, and
hackers,
arguably the whole
hackers, whatever.
The problem is that with traditional coding, you build it, you run it, something goes wrong, you debug, you patch. With a smart contract, once it's in the blockchain, it is in the blockchain. It can never be modified. And it's just it's very dangerous coding smart contracts. You need to make them incredibly simple. And, well, yeah, like you're saying, the more complicated you make it, the larger your attack surface. And it just takes one little chink.
Yep.
That has to be perfect.
Yeah, and there's a multi-million-dollar bug bounty on every smart contract that gets published to the blockchain. And well, I mean, we're finding these bugs, and maybe this is what the ecosystem has to go through in order to become anti-fragile. You know, they have to be punished for these mistakes, and then maybe in 5 years, 10 years, we get this really solid code that can give us. Because when you talk about smart contracts, it's really exciting. I mean, the things that we talk about being possible, you know, like an insurance company that isn't even a company, that just pays out when bad things happen. I mean, that's pretty exciting. You know, the DAO itself is really exciting, like a headless venture capital firm where you put money in and then you vote on what projects get made. And I mean, all that was really fascinating. But yeah,
That's why I'm holding on to Ethereum, is because I think in the future, when those kind of contracts become reality and maybe get more bug proof, that a lot of people are still going to use the Ethereum platform.
Well, there's this really great wallet called Parity if you need a story for a rainy day.
We're gonna make another one called Parity Gold.
So,
We already know about
is there a difference in storing it offline? Could you?
That's a good question. I think if you've got a smart contract. The smart contract code is on the blockchain, so there is no kind of offline storage.
Yeah. Smart contract exists as an address on the blockchain, no different than your Ethereum is stored at an address on the blockchain. So no one is in possession of the private key. Smart contract simply is there. And it has different functions you can call. If you send money into it, it knows what to do with the money. And then you can send messages to it. You can say, execute a function called trade, and then it does whatever is behind that code. But if there's a function that's been written incorrectly, no one can go in and change it because no one controls the private key that allows that address to be manipulated.
Right, the contract itself owns the key.
Yeah, it's as easy as creating a smart contract that lacks a function to deal with money being sent into it. And then anytime someone sends money to the smart contract, that money is now gone forever because it just sits in the contract. The contract doesn't know how to spend it, and no one can go in and touch it. And
yeah,
That's a flaw.
well, it's
the nature of it.
Need to be bulletproof when they write these contracts, and it's such a new thing that we don't even have a proper system to audit them yet. The best you do is write it and show it to your other friends who've been playing with, why can't I remember the name? Not Serpent, Solidity, for a couple of years and see if they find a problem. And it's a programming language that Vitalik created himself. So there are no people who've been, oh yeah, I've got 3 decades programming in Solidity because it's Vitalik's baby, you know. And so we're all dealing with a language we've never seen and being forced to write flawless code.
So now it makes sense why he's so skinny, because he's so stressed out. It's like just disappearing in front of us. I'm just gonna.
Ethereum is still considered to be in beta, right?
Do they call themselves beta? I don't know.
With Metropolis, we're officially in the beginning of
When did Metropolis?
November, early November. I can't remember.
So just a couple of weeks ago.
491900. Yeah.
Oh, is it that new though? Or no, it's been.
Yeah.
Metropolis is that new?
It dropped. Oh, it was middle of October. It was right before DEF CON.
So now it's officially launched.
Right.
Yeah. And then the rumor is that Casper will be released soon, which I think is part of what's driving the price up. Because traders are anticipating Casper will move to proof of stake away from proof of work. Everybody wants to get their 1,000 Ethereum so that they can start getting 5% APR.
Ah, yes. Interesting.
It's a bank term. I don't even know what it's.
Annual percentage rate. Annual percentage rate?
Yeah.
Say that again. Yes. You have how many Ethereum?
1,000.
Yeah. Will entitle you to about 5% back on your Ethereum yearly.
And 100 is 0.5.
Well, we haven't seen the code yet. We don't know for sure that it's 1,000. That's what everybody thinks it'll be. It's a cutoff. If you have 100, probably there'll be smart contracts to pool your money and then stake in a pool.
Don't worry about it. Don't just disappear.
Yeah, this is interesting because if you require all of these people to not spend 1,000 Ethereum, then you can stabilize the economic environment within which the currency operates. It's basically like a reserve that never gets withdrawn because if you withdraw it, then you don't get your 5% per year. So and people love this. Like airlines love it when you don't cash in your airline miles, right? That's a boon for airlines. When you go to the skee ball place and you win your tickets out of the skee ball thing, if you don't get a teddy bear, then they love that, right? That's just pure profit. Same thing with gift cards that don't get redeemed. So yeah, it's interesting. Interesting.
When you buy evasion drink cards and they run out of drinks, and they won't cash them back.
You sound like you've got personal experience with
I've got a lot of
Well, there's always another invasion party.
Million, you're talking about drinks.
These bin tags getting expensive.
I don't know how many bin tags he's talking about.
All right,
So what
guys.
BitConnect essentially is.
BitConnect.
Yeah. Isn't that kind of a similar thing that's trying to get you to?
I don't know much about BitConnect except that, yeah. Well, this is just what I haven't investigated it. I know they're under investigation.
Well, they've
Chapter 11 or bankruptcy
no,
or
I don't know if it's bankruptcy, but they
insolvency or
insolvency and they put something in the housing fund.
Since when?
This is UK. This is in UK.
Oh, in-
No, but it's coming like I think they're getting reviewed or something, and at 2 months if they don't explain their
Yeah, they need to
solvency,
produce
they'll-
something, right? And if they
they'll
don't,
shut down. Well, maybe it's already happened.
so it's all over for BitConnect. I thought I saw a banner ad
It's only in
Totally,
UK.
yeah.
only in the UK.
They're looking to, UK authorities are looking to shut it down
Hmm.
because it is a multi-level marketing site.
Right.
So your profits depend on you pulling other people into the system.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is a
It's the what's the name?
a pyramid
rule.
scheme
No,
or
the rule with
It's
the
exactly
the
that.
4 rules that the SEC decides whether something is a honor. So
Talking about the Howie.
I am. It's
Yeah.
it's something else.
You sure BitConnect requires you to personally bring people in? Don't you?
Its success rate is based on other people.
Yeah. But
Right, so
I don't think your duty.
you find two
hard-
friends
it's hard
and they
to
find
find.
2 friends and they find 2 friends. And,
I don't think it is. I think you simply get.
By the VCC.
Yeah, you have to commit to holding for a period of time, and as a result of that, you get your
1%.
rise in the price as well as some interest on your investment,
right. But you agree to hold on to the coin for a
Yeah.
period of time, and
Yeah.
that's
which is what the Ethereum thing sounds like it was trying to do as well.
yeah. Well, and Dash does the same thing with their master nodes. If you want to vote in the Dash ecosystem, you've got to have, I think, 10,000 Dash, and then you can run a
There's
master
a
node.
difference between staking, which a lot like Decred and well, proof of stake Ethereum.
Waves is doing it, Stratus
Waves.
is doing it.
And so you do something like
You
download
vote or
you're voting, so you are participating in the ecosystem and
Right, providing a
cultivating.
service. Yeah, you become the miner.
Yeah, whereas with BitConnect, you don't do that.
You
You
just-
give me money, they hold your money
Hmm.
in their own wallet. You don't have the private key, and then they kind of goes through all the wheels and they spit back
And
a
you-
little
and-
bit of.
And you buy Bitcoin and all the altcoins through their platform, but you
No,
actually
no,
never
it's only
own
Bitcoin.
only
Hmm.
Bitcoin.
Only
Also, with staking, you can stop staking at any time. You never lose
You never
control of the token.
What do you guys think about proof of work and all the electricity it uses, and proof of stake as a viable alternative to proof of work? Anybody have any thoughts on that?
Explain proof of stake.
Proof of stake is, well, you've got proof of work, which requires computers and electricity, chunking away and solving a
Very expensive.
right. It's expensive, and they want to replace that with proof of stake, meaning that there's a group of people out there that own coins, and if you have enough coins, then you get a vote, and you can decide what happens, and you can decide if blocks get made, and you can decide what happens with the code, and but you have to have a certain amount. You have to stake a certain amount of the coin. So you no longer need the electricity. You just need a bunch of people who are hanging on to a certain number of coins.
It's smarter for the earth.
Yes, that's part of the argument. Yeah.
You still need a small amount.
Right. Well, some of them are going part proof of stake and part proof of work, right? Isn't that what Ethereum wants to do? Is do some proof of stake and some proof of work?
They're going to transition, correct?
But they'll
Start
go
by, I
eventually.
think it was 1 in every 1,000 blocks will be proof of stake
Hmm.
until they see that it's working and bug free. So just
Mhm.
transition to proof of stake and then some crippling bug and we have to report again.
Uh-huh.
Is that the Casper?
Casper,
Starting with
yeah.
1 out of
Yeah, but the goal is eventually to move to a fully proof of stake model. Yeah.
And have they? I'm sure they've considered. I mean, when I don't know all of the details and the maths around it, but haven't they considered that you could get like political parties forming that kind of form voting blocks and could exclude certain people or make the whole ecosystem move their direction, or there could be oligarchs arise who have all of this Ethereum and can basically determine, they no longer have the great equalizer of the real world and electricity, but they've got a political environment where if they can just get enough of a block of people to vote in a certain way or act in a certain way, then they can take the whole ecosystem in a new direction.
I would suggest, how is that much different from Jihan World?
Mm-hmm.
The difference, like mining still requires significant resources and Yeah, proof of stake does. It still centralizes the power amongst the people who have a lot of tokens.
Right.
But the reality is that mining already is that way. At least this way, we're not burning crazy amounts of power. I believe with Ethereum, it's going to be a lottery where anyone who has enough tokens can say we would like to stake, and then it's just given at random to X number of stakers.
Right.
But I'm really interested in what you just suggested, and I'd like to think about that more.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So Vitalik posted this very controversial text about if there is a conflict in the community about what you can do, you can just hard fork away the stakers' money if you want, and they can be on their own fork. So there is this possibility: if some government owns half of the Ether and cripples it, just hard fork away all of those coins. Keep going from there.
They can, right. But in a way, that's exercising political control over a situation, right? If a bunch of people say, we don't like you, we can...
You agree to disagree, you split your paths.
Okay.
And then ultimately the market would decide by which chain they choose to support.
So Ethereum Gold.
IFO.
Ethereum Gold.
Ethereum Varga, but nobody's talking about it. When they forked to Metropolis, and people said that they didn't think Metropolis was a good idea.
And they just stayed on the...
Yeah, but last I checked, it had 11 followers on Twitter. So I think it was largely ignored.
Yeah, a non-event.
But who knows? Maybe they're going to pop up suddenly and say, surprise, you all have Ethereum Varga. And it just takes one exchange listing it.
You know, it reminds me of the Mandelbrot set. You ever seen the Mandelbrot set? It's like a fractal pattern, right? It's based on a very simple equation, but you feed this equation numbers, and it creates this incredible fractal pattern that's really infinite. And some of the fractal patterns go off and die, and then some of them turn into this like whole universe of new patterns, right? And it seems like that's what's happening with all of these forks and all these experiments and all these coins. It's like all of this stuff is hitting this ecosystem of, being tested out in the market, and something like Varga will just kind of fizzle out and die. Maybe this Bitcoin Gold will go for a year. Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin itself might fight forever, and go off and build their own kind of worlds. It's an exciting time because I think we're getting to see, people are getting to test their ideas, and the world is getting something new, and we get to figure out if these things are useful or not. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's confusing for people who aren't paying attention 24/7 like we are. Like when your grandmother sees Bitcoin Gold, or your grandfather for that matter, when sees Bitcoin Gold or Ethereum Varga or Ethereum Classic, it's very confusing for them. And the whole brand is there's probably people that see the whole space and go, it's for a bunch of nerds and geeks, and I call me when it's over. But for people who are paying attention, I think it's a very exciting time, and we're getting to try all kinds of new things. We had like this kind of old, stale banking model that was around for hundreds and hundreds of years, and now we get something different. It's for the first time ever, well, for hundreds of years, either only a person or a corporation could hold funds and hold money, and now a computer program can have money, right? The implications are pretty wild,
We've gone from this hierarchical
right, and and rules-based, like very transparent rules-based systems that people can see the rules before they get started and decide if they want to participate in this system or that system. We're not there yet, but you can kind of see a world where these things exist, where there's just like an insurance company. This is just an example that I can understand, and maybe there's 10 insurance company contracts, and you can pick which one you like, and then you don't need insurance companies, you don't need regulators, you don't need anything, but you get your house gets flooded and all this money arrives, right? And
there's an ICO that Roberto is working on that actually takes those insurance policies and monetizes them. So
Uh-huh.
that while you're not using them, you can make some money from them.
Yeah, what
Right.
insurance
And when you
companies
need
do.
them, they're there.
Right. Well, and capital that's just parked should be finding a useful place to serve society. Like, I mean, really all the people who have Bitcoin sitting in a private key that nobody can use, I think ultimately, although it's good to give people that freedom and that control over their funds, it won't be good if all of that stored up capital is not provided to the world in the interim to make and build things. This is what banking was supposed to do. You know, I've got excess of what I consume, so I've got savings. And I'm going to need that savings when I retire in 30 years. And in the meantime, I can loan that money, or I can make that money available to society at large so that it can build the things that I will someday consume. Right? This is how, you know, bankers are supposed to provide a value to society where they can make use of these funds so that we all benefit from our shared wealth. But for various reasons, we don't have that situation. But I think that's part of what's exciting about this new world that's arriving. These things can be possible. I often talk about the scenario where there's like, my mother is a retiree, like, and these days she's trying to make like 0.5% on her money. Like the interest rates are like terrible. Meanwhile, there's a taxi driver in Africa somewhere that has to, if he wants to fill up his tank with gas, he's got to go to the local loan shark, and he pays 100% interest in one day. Like he borrows $20, fills up his tank with gas, drives a taxi all day, and then gives the loan shark $40 back, right? And if you could just match those two, the world is way better for my mom, way better for that taxi driver, and the world just works better. Like everybody's cooperating in a better way. And
What about the poor loan shark?
what's that?
So what about the poor loan shark?
Yes, the poor loan shark. We'll have to send him for occupational training or something else. Maybe he could be a bodyguard or something. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, let's see. What else are we going to talk about tonight? How about the CME, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange?
Oh, yes.
Here we go, guys. Check it out. The Chicago Mercantile Exchange, the world's biggest futures exchange, said on Monday it still has plans to launch a futures contract for Bitcoin this year. They posted something on their website that it was going to be December 11th, but they've since pulled that down. But they want to get it done by the end of the year, and they're talking with the financial regulators. We could have a futures market from the CME by the end of the year, and also from this, where is it? The CBOE is also trying to launch a futures market, both of them with the idea of having a Bitcoin ETF in early 2018. Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? What do you guys think about a Bitcoin?
Stabilizes the price.
Stabilizes the price. This is the function of a futures market. It stabilizes the price. If you think about the scenario, if you're a miner and you've got lots of fixed costs, and you don't know if Bitcoin is going to be 10,000 next month or 3,000 next month, you can buy a futures contract. That means that you lock in the price so that you can pay your bills on all the Bitcoin that you mine between now and next month when all of your physical bills are come due. So there is a lot of people put on their tinfoil hats and they say that, you know, the powers that be are trying to get involved with Bitcoin futures, and they're going to manipulate the price just like they do with gold, just like they do with silver. But there are useful things that futures markets can do. Does anybody want to take the opposite position, or does anyone think that this is a bad thing that's happening?
On one side, to legitimize it more, so more people will be willing to start investing or buy Bitcoin.
Yeah, the idea is that there's going to be more institutional money that is available to invest in cryptocurrencies. One technicality. Right, it definitely gives it legitimacy, and you know, a lot of people don't want to go buy a Trezor wallet and remember their 24-year word mnemonic and, you know, keep things in a safe. They just want to ask their broker, like, you know, buy some Bitcoin or some Bitcoin futures, or just expose me to this market because I'm excited about it, but I don't want to deal with all the carry costs, right? Low as they might be for cryptocurrency, they're too high for some people. And, you know, institutional investors, hedge funds, pension funds, ultimately this will allow them to invest in things like Bitcoin, probably ultimately Ethereum, and perhaps many other cryptocurrencies.
See, IG already offer that form of derivative. So it's only pegged to the Bitcoin price.
What?
IG and Pepperstone, Australia, already offer it. So you can deposit 50 grand, maybe get $1 million, average it sometimes. Way to go. I don't see how different.
Are they trading at par with Bitcoin?
I think it takes a bit of time.
Because there's an instrument in the States, BTCG, I think, is the ticker symbol, and they were trading at like a 60% premium to Bitcoin.
It's certainly within range of $100. Sure.
Yeah.
I know there's a collective of 5 changes that contribute to a global price.
Mm-hmm. There was a trader that chimed in on Twitter. Actually, it was his dad, because I guess there was an article in the Wall Street Journal that was kind of poo-pooing this idea, and there was a old Chicago mercantile trader kind of chimed in, and this guy kind of captured this in this tweet storm that was just flying all over the place. But it makes some good points. CME futures contracts is extremely bullish for many reasons. First things first, I feel the early adopter crypto community feels threatened. The CMA futures product was not created with crypto cypherpunks in mind. It was created with money managers and speculators. There's a massive amount of money on the sidelines that wants exposure to this new asset. People have to understand the value in a truly uncorrelated asset. Do people understand what an uncorrelated asset is? Right, like something that, like everything else goes down and the other one goes up, kind of thing, or it's something that people look for in a diversified portfolio. Money managers do not retain their clients when everything is going up. Everyone's a genius in a bull market. Everyone makes money when the S&P 500 is trading at all-time highs, but money managers retain their customers when they reduce risk and survive after exposure to bear markets. So if you think that there's a correction coming in with all the money printing going on for the last year since 2008, money managers are looking for a hedge, and perhaps they see Bitcoin playing a role. When portfolios are down tens of percentage points in a bear market, and yours is the only one that's down 5% because you diversified with assets like BTC and gold, then you basically keep your clients. So anyways, Wall Street, quote unquote, money needs exposure to this asset, a truly uncorrelated asset that operates outside of third party and has no price ceiling. BTC should avoid every single portfolio. BTC should be in every single portfolio. Now it can be. So I don't know, guys. It seems like it might be a positive thing. However, they settle all of their accounts, all of their contracts in dollars, in fiat. So there's
no direct relationship.
Yeah.
Other than price.
Although you could enter in, you could imagine a scenario where lots of money enters the futures market, pushes the money around, or pushes the price around with the futures contract when they don't actually have to move any Bitcoin at all.
That's what I was thinking. How does it affect the actual price of the Bitcoin traded on the second one?
It's the predicted future price of Bitcoin, and you can get in and out of it with dollars, and lots of people have lots of dollars. The incumbent banking system has lots of dollars, and the
community have to agree on it, so that market can affect the price because the exchanges are so open.
I don't know. I think it remains to be seen.
Yeah. That's finished. Game over.
I mean, this is what people accuse the paper gold market of doing with the price of gold. You know, there's more paper gold traded than actual gold, and they could never deliver on all of the gold contracts that are in existence. And so the tail wags the dog, so to speak, and the representations of gold, or the nominal gold, affects the real price, or the price of the real.
It's like $5 trillion in commodities on the CBE, but there's $50 trillion in derivatives, leveraged 10 times.
Yeah.
So I don't know which direction it's going to go, but what's the market cap of all of Bitcoin right now?
like 120 billion, something like that.
So it could go 10 times, or it could go to zero.
Right. So if you've got 10 times, so say $1 trillion in Bitcoin derivatives, affecting the price of $100 billion market. Mhm.
100-year future.
Right.
And then they can be traded as well.
They can be traded forever. It's like,
But
we didn't escape.
Yeah, exactly. We're back in the same matrix.
the thing is, though, it's a lot easier to take delivery of your Bitcoin than to take delivery of gold and other physical assets that are hard to move physically and that need lots of security and so on. So the point is, like, yeah, they settle in dollars, but you know, you could, yeah, I don't know if all of these people that are
I think it's detached enough.
You guys been to the cockfights here?
what's that?
You guys been to the cockfights here?
The
They're betting in Bitcoin now.
Oh, the cockfights.
I like
Oh,
an analogy. It's like the chickens.
No,
like $1,000 of the chickens, and they like feed them, and they have their tricks, and they're really into it. But then the people who really care about it are the people who are betting on it. It's like $1,000 in the actual infrastructure of the fight, and then there's $100,000 on top of it.
Wow.
Betting.
Yeah.
So and the game hasn't even started yet. Wall Street's going to come in
And the minimum
Does anyone
leverage
trade,
is 10 to
options
1.
on
That's the standard
I can't
leverage.
afford a contract.
10 to
because
1.
I can leverage
contract's
on my
5
phone
Bitcoin.
right now, 20 to 1.
10 to 1's like minimum.
Anyone going to trade any options on
Right.
Oh no, on CME.
Oh.
No.
Here's a possible complication or something that might redeem us, and that is if people start recognizing their profits in Bitcoin rather than in dollars.
Mm-hmm.
If they ruin the dollar, then people are going to take their profits in dollars and then turn them right around into actual Bitcoin, possibly.
Possibility. But too many hops.
Yeah.
There's two sentiments now. I gotta analyze. Like the people are super passionate inside this space, this ecosystem,
Mhm.
and there's a bunch of bears that want to eat this.
Yeah.
So
It opens out to government manipulation.
they'll short, make a bunch of money, and then come in and buy a bunch of Bitcoin. And
Mhm.
Yeah.
you guys gotta start trading options and futures to like keep this.
Yeah, well, that's, I know nothing about that world. I mean, I feel totally out of my depth thinking about derivatives
We're in
and
this whole
options
mess
and
because of
futures and
derivatives.
shorts. What's that?
We're in this whole mess because of derivatives.
Yeah.
There's $200 trillion in debt, but there's like 1.8 quadrillion dollars in derivatives.
Uh-huh. So are we going to have a crash in derivatives to learn our lesson? I mean, and what about the
I think this
actual
might be
utility
the
of derivatives?
This is what they're gonna bring in for the cherry on top. But
Yeah.
this thing, I don't know. It's gonna be exciting.
I hope it happens on a Tuesday.
You guys should join all the options trading groups. Just see what the futures traders are talking about.
Yeah.
They're just like ready. Like they talk about just.
Yeah, I think we're swimming with the sharks now, right?
You guys.
Can you share some of those on the Facebook group?
And if
Yeah.
you guys want to trade options, the easiest one is Tasty Trade.
Tasty Trade?
Lowest commissions.
Huh.
So I don't know how expensive options are going to be, but one
Right.
future contract is going to be like $40,000 right now. So I can't
Mhm.
play futures. But
Interesting. All right. Well, that's kind of a sour note. I was all excited.
It could go both ways, though. You guys could be super rich.
Well, but I don't know. Just speaking from my own point of view, I mean, I'm really hoping that this doesn't just deliver a new version of the old system, and that we get something that's better. And if it's just kind of being manipulated and funneling money into, the hands of rent seekers.
People are going to be able to print money and bet on it, our game. They're going to make money from nothing.
Yeah.
It sounds like even worse than the financial system at the moment because you've got.
That is the financial system.
Well, the traditional financial system. Now you've got hackers that are also like making money out of thin air. Then you've got scams like you're doing this, and then I'm banking over here, and then I'm putting it in this company, and then I'm doing it over here. Then you got the derivatives. It's like
But that is the normal system. You've got people that print money at home, like
This is the first time we're allowed to make the money. Usually it's just a select that make
Yeah,
the
exactly. At least we're
It's the
included
first
in the
time
game
we are
now.
allowed. I mean, what hopeful is there's a lot of people that are ex-Wall Street that are gone into the crypto scene. And maybe essentially they'll realize, why should I work for Goldman Sachs? I can be my own Goldman Sachs. Maybe this will end up biting them in the butt. Maybe it could get out of control and reverse it, and the people that do make their money pull out, and then you have 1 million people that are on their own hedge funds.
Basically, we are saying that after 2008, we have created such an amazing technology like the blockchain, just to be enable everyone to speculate more than what we were able before 2008.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
It could be. That'd be unfortunate.
They can't just print their money to get out of it.
If I could just boil it down, though, I think the whole problem for humanity is that you've got reality, right? Like at a certain point in time, like something real has to happen. Like somebody has to dig a ditch or make a meal or build something. Like there's the real world has real constraints. And all of these things that we push around, they're like representations or symbols of the value that ultimately has to be delivered to somebody at a certain point in time. And we've created this whole universe of receipts, right? There's receipts flying everywhere, like whatever trillion dollars of receipts those derivatives represent. At a certain point in time, like, you know, a retiree has got to, you know, have a sponge bath, right? I mean, or, you know, a building needs to get built, or a ditch needs to be dug, or someone needs to eat something. And that's where the rubber meets the road. And, you know, if you've got too many receipts for too little reality, then, you know, that's when everything breaks down.
The only ecosystem that matters is the water, air, and the ground.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if fintech ecosystem, whatever.
Yeah.
They abuse that word so much they forget. Guess what? You can't count your money. You can't breathe.
Right. You can't eat a gold coin. You can't, you know.
Well, they can just buy more air.
There's an ICO. It's called Air.
That's
It's a new ICO. Do you like Air? Because you're going to want this new ICO. We're going to put
Air
Air on the
ICO
blockchain.
Air. Yeah, we'll send it to you through your phone.
I remember when they first launched a bottle of water in India called Himalayan water. I started making a joke about how long will it be before Himalayan air is launched, and I was reading in the Times of India the other day about exporting air from the higher parts of the Himalayas to particularly wealthy polluted areas in the world.
Yeah, there's actually a British company that is scooping up British clean country air, clean in jars and selling it to China.
Canadian as well made $1
Yeah.
million selling bottled Rocky Mountain air at $20 a bottle.
I mean,
to
Ubud's
Beijing.
Yeah, that's good.
So they all started with Fiji water. The whole idea of Fiji water, like it was pure water, but there's hardly any water in Fiji.
I picture the
It's
board.
reverse osmosis. It's not even, just happens to be bottled there. Yeah, exactly. We're going to market ourselves to death.
All right, guys. Well, that kind of brings to a close the topics we were going to discuss tonight. I want to thank you guys for coming and remind you that we're on Facebook. We've got this Facebook community page, and we've also got the closed group. If anybody in the room is not in the closed group and wants to be in, we'd like to keep that kind of a small group with people we've met. But we do have the Facebook community page and the Facebook group. We've also got our YouTube channel, and if you want to find me on Twitter, my name is Gary, and there we are. At DykstraNet is my Twitter handle. We are going to convene to the canteen. We're not going to Kismet tonight. We're going to keep it local. Hopefully, we can continue the conversation a little bit more easily that way. It might even still be raining outside, but the guys in the canteen have decided to stay behind and stay open a little bit late so we can have some food. So let's continue the conversation over there. And we do this every Tuesday night, 5 p.m. local time in Bali. Thanks for coming. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
So how do you get into the closed group?
I can get you in there. Yeah.
Fingerprints or need to swab my mouth or
Send your private key.
You just need your
it's
DNA.
just my private key.
Bye-bye.